Want something doing? You've got to do it yourself. Hello and welcome back to the Real Life Podcast, episode 16 now. Very soon, if I edit this and get it out in time, it's Oscar o'clock, and we're going to take our seats to see which film an organisation deems to be objectively given the title of best in a medium that is heavily subjective and very often incorrect. I've been through a million examples of the Oscars just being plain wrong. We've had Driving Miss Daisy, Green Book, Tom Hooper winning in the year that Inception and The Social Network came out, and yet for some reason I still care about what the results are. Perhaps because sometimes the banner of best being given to something I personally deem undeserving of that title makes me worry that people are going to devalue what and who didn't win, particularly if there's a flagrantly incorrect verdict. So today, not only am I going to go through the Oscar nominations and give my predictions, but I'm also going to give out the incredibly prestigious, the much revered, the literally Who Are You awards that are the BSWHAs. BSWHAs, the Bajoria's What Should Have Won Awards. I'm going to take you through all the major categories at the Oscars and tell you who should win, because I know you're all desperate to know what one young white boy thinks should be deemed the best. Some of the BSWHAs will be other nominees. Some of them may not even be nominated in the Oscar categories at all. I should prep this, though, that I haven't, despite being outrageously available, I haven't seen Women Talking, I haven't seen Triangle of Sadness, and I refuse to watch it, Avatar: The Way of Water. I'm not spending 3 hours watching the most thinly veiled metaphors and the most basic story ever. Thank you, so I can only go off what I've heard from those three, so apologies for that, I haven't had a chance to get around to them. But I've got a lot to say, and I'm going to try and be quick to say it, so without further ado, doff your suits, pop on the tie, and join me for the first annual BSWHAs. I'm very lonely here. Right, let's go. Okay, I'm going to start with cinematography. So, the Oscar nominees for Best Cinematography are All Quiet on the Western Front, James Friend, Bardo: False Chronicle of Handful Truths, Darius Khondji, Elvis with Mandy Walker, Empire of Light, Roger Deakins, and Tar with Florian Hofmeister. I'm not going to spend too long on this one. I think it's going to be given to All Quiet on the Western Front by the Oscars. I wouldn't be annoyed with that at all. It feels methodical and sensible, but it's also fantastically rich with each of its shots. Several elements from the general's point of view of war, and some from the soldiers, some overarching. It's fantastic. It's a great film. It's also incredibly moving. If it's not All Quiet, then it should be Elvis from those nominees. However, the BSWHAs, my awards, go to Nope. It's so brilliantly rich, Nope, and once again, it's been criminally forgotten by the awards. I've already spoken at length about Nope. I've done a whole episode on it, so feel free to listen to that instead of me rambling here. But it is brilliant, and it doesn't need to be reiterated again. But virtually every single shot is telling you something incredibly important without just overloading you. I could conceivably have given this to Elvis, or perhaps even The Batman, because I actually think one of the undeniable things about The Batman's brilliance was that it looked utterly spectacular. The return of that Seven-esque grungy type cinematography sprinkled into some fantastically beautiful overarching shots of Gotham and individual images as well that tell you so much about the story. But to me, Nope uses the camera for all the right reasons, and you can use countless images from it that tell you the themes of the film. The one that stands out for me is the black man on the horse right at the end of the film. It's perfect. It symbolises everything. It's glorious, and it's no surprise that it's so good with Hoyte van Hoytema doing it, and Jordan Peele with him directing it is just a magical combination. So for me, cinematography goes to Nope and Hoyte van Hoytema. That's that. Now we're moving on to original screenplay. Original screenplay, the 5 nominations for the Oscars are The Banshees of Inisherin by Martin McDonagh, Everything Everywhere All at Once, written by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, The Fabelmans, written by Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner, Tar, written by Todd Field, and Triangle of Sadness, written by Ruben Östlund. There are some excellent contenders here. I think it's a pretty decent list, but I think I'm going to end up aligning with the Oscars on this, if there's any justice in the world. I think this will go, and should go, to The Banshees of Inisherin. Martin McDonagh is a master of black comedy, and he's back at it again here, following on from the play Cripple of Inishmaan. He's written a screenplay which is a devastating amount of reason why The Banshees of Inisherin is so fantastic. It's performed absolutely perfectly by every actor. It's shot gorgeously, but looking at the other nominees, there's just nothing quite as sharp as Banshees in terms of its dialogue, its wit, its character development, its portrayal of feeling. I will, however, give a shout out to the Fabelmans, not the people, the film, because actually the words the characters said in that film were spot on. I don't think it felt clunky or overdrawn or too heavy or forced, which would have been very, very easy to do given what it was talking about and given the personal nature of the story. It could have been incredibly cheesy, but I think actually instead it was earnest and it spoke well. And so if that did win at the Oscars, I would not be remotely disappointed at all. But Martin McDonagh has outdone everyone here, hands down for me. There's a thing that happens with dialogue, I feel, when I'm watching a film, which is sometimes I think it's used too overtly or too wastingly. Often I think things like Marvel, for example, it's easy for people to remember what happened, not how it happened. And I think the dialogue is a huge part of establishing how things happen. Because if the how is forced by the dialogue, then it feels way less satisfying. Think of Interstellar, the whole exposition dump on the start of the mission, when they should know that all already and we should be drip fed that and shown it, means that the way it plays out slightly does feel less satisfying. You know, I've written some stuff in my life, mainly drama scripts, but also a couple of sketches. I mean, it's all incredibly amateur and probably rubbish, but dialogue's part of a film that I really focus on because of that, because I'm used to writing little bits of dialogue. So when I'm watching something like Hobbs and Shaw, for example, and someone has made Idris Elba say the words genocide, schmenocide, I immediately switch off. So when every line feels like a true representation of temporal space and character and progression and authenticity, that makes me very happy indeed, and that's why I've gone with Banshees, and because that's what it shows you, that's what it does. It's perfect as a screenplay. As for adapted screenplay, I'm not going to do a full list on that, but I think the Oscars will go with women talking, and as I say, I haven't seen it, but I've heard so many people talk about it, and as the title suggests, the talking is the thing, so I hope that is where it goes, because it seems to be incredibly popular, and people are loving it. Loads of critics that I like are all saying that's fantastic, and if the talking's the thing, and the film's fantastic, the talking's got to be recognised, so there seems to be a lot of love for Sarah Polley's work, so I'd be very happy to see the Oscar go there. The other contender for me is Living. It's Kazuo Ishiguro who wrote the screenplay for that, and that deals with what could potentially be a very depressing and heavy subject in a delicate, real and caring manner, while also managing to be quite uplifting. Instead of just being classic and just sweet, it is deep and it is thoughtful and it cares about its characters, and I think that's very impressive. But yes, the BSWHAs go to Banshees of Inisherin for original screenplay, and even though I haven't seen it, women talking for adapted screenplay, and I think the Oscars may well follow suit. Next, we're on to the first acting award. It is Best Supporting Actress. The nominations are Angela Bassett with Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Hong Chau in The Whale, Kerry Condon in The Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Stephanie Hsu in Everything Everywhere All at Once. This will go, I would imagine, to either Stephanie Hsu or Angela Bassett, perhaps more likely the latter. I confess I didn't see Wakanda Forever. I've lost my Marvel motivation. That's my Marvel motivation for anyone who's normal. But I have heard that it feels like a standout performance, and one which elevates the film, and one which is notable within the film, so all power to her. I haven't seen it, so I'm afraid I can't actually comment on it. The BSWHA, however, I can't believe I'm saying that as if it's a thing, the BSWHA is going to Kerry Condon. It may well be already becoming apparent as to what my favourite film of the year is. She is utterly fantastic in Banshees. She moves perfectly and free-flowingly from fierce to loving to sentimental to caring to furious to proud to defensive, and brilliantly shows a woman standing up for herself when so many elements of her life would rather she did not. I think it's a perfect performance, and I think her presence is actually one of the strongest parts of the film, because these male characters that make up a huge part of the film, often they need to lie on this female character for support and for checking themselves and for emotional resonance, and Kerry Condon does a job which is stellar in portraying every single thing that is asked of her at any time, and I love it. I would also love to give an honourable mention for supporting actress to Amy Lee Wood for Living, because again, she is a huge reason why that film is as sweet as it is, because she provides a wonderful element of vibrancy and contrast trust and uplifting joy, and that's a key part of the story, and she does it very well indeed. But yes, in this case, for supporting actress, the Bourgeois is going to go to Kerry Condon. I believe the Oscars will go for Angela Bassett. Best Supporting Actor now, and the nominees are interesting, actually. I think there's some strange inclusions. Brendan Gleeson for the Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry, there we go, for Causeway, Judd Hirsch in The Fabelmans, Barry Keoghan in The Banshees of Inisherin, and Ke Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. This will be given, I am very confident in saying, by the Oscars, to Ke Huy Quan for Everything Everywhere. And I understand it, because there is an emotional heart with his performance, which is absolutely pivotal in Everything Everywhere being as successful as it is. And also, he is a lovely, lovely man. It's so nice to see him just enjoying this whole season, this whole period of him being recognised in this way. It's like he can't quite believe it, and he seems genuinely happy, and that is fantastic. I'm glad he's at the fore of people's film minds again, and I hope he stays there, because he's a fantastic actor and he does a great job in this. Would I agree with the Oscars if they gave it to him? No. I'll give you 3 guesses as to who I'm picking, and no, it's not Mark Wahlberg in Uncharted. It's Barry Keoghan. Yeah, the Bourgeois goes to Barry Keoghan. That's one of the 2 Banshees nominated actors in this particular category. He is the winner for me. He is utterly superb. It feels like the perfect antithesis, in a positive way, to the Kerry Condon performance. He is superb. It is the definition of embodying a character, because he completely disappears in it, and he absolutely breaks your heart 10 times over. Little shifts in his physicality at certain moments when different things happen to him that make him change his personality, his conscience. A flawless Aran Islands accent, which is not easy at all. It moved me, and I think hopefully we will very much be in Barry Keoghan time very soon, because I want to see his Joker. I didn't think I would be in the mood for more Joker after Joaquin Phoenix, and yet here I am, desperate for Matt Reeves to use him second time round, because the deleted scene with him in made me so excited. I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast before, but the deleted scene with the Joker in The Batman, I understand why it was removed, but it was so much better than what they used, because it actually gave us a little bit of an insight and didn't just feel like sequel bait. I don't know if canonically it would make sense with where the Batman is situated temporal wise if he was to come and play in the second film, but I want it so badly. In my opinion, I think Banshees cobbled together the perfect cast for what it was trying to do, and didn't waste them in the slightest. Every single one of the lead 4 cast is nominated for an Oscar, so tell me they aren't astonishing. That tells you everything you need to know about this cast. The nominations for the Bourgeois were also different to the Oscars. So Miles Teller I would include for Top Gun Maverick, because it's not necessarily a role you might think needs to be so fantastic, and I probably wouldn't give him an award for it, but it's a role that needed to be played, and he played it very well. I think he represents frustration well. We also have Brendan Gleeson, who I would have included. Harry Melling for Pale Blue Eye, who plays Edgar Allan Poe fantastically in a poetic manner. He gives him a character, he gives him a depth, which I think could very easily have been substituted for just being slightly sinister. Paul Dano for The Fabelmans, and a word for Tom Brooke in Empire of Light. It's not a huge role by any means, but compared to his previous roles, Sherlock and Crown based, it is a completely different character. It is a fun one, it is an empathetic one, it is a caring one, it is a bold one, and I hope he gets much work off this, because I think he is fantastic and stand out in that film. The Judd Hirsch nomination within the Oscars, as I mentioned before, is strange. He is great in the film, but he's not in the film for very long, and if they're going to nominate from The Fabelmans, then it has to be either Gabriel LaBelle, who plays Steven Spielberg, or Paul Dano. I say Steven Spielberg, he plays Sammy, but that is Steven Spielberg. Or Paul Dano, who plays his dad, depending on who you think takes the lead role in that one, because I think there's a blurred line there. It's a little bit Green Book for me. It was Mahershala Ali, really a supporting actor, not for me. But yes, in the Bourgeois here, it's another one for the Banshees of Inisherin. Barry Keoghan takes it, and I think the Oscars will go for Ke Huy Quan. Okay, on to the first leading award, the Best Lead Actress. The Oscar nominations are Cate Blanchett in Tar, Ana de Armas in Blonde, Andrea Riseborough in To Leslie, Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans, and Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is the standout one for me, where the Oscars are about to get it very, very wrong indeed. They are going to give this to Cate Blanchett, and I'm absolutely certain of it. I'm so certain of it. They could possibly go with Michelle Yeoh, conceivably. Of course they could. But I think they're going to favour the film over the actor in that particular instance. I really hope they don't go with Cate Blanchett and Tar, though, because that is wrong. This may well be a hot take, but from where I'm sitting, Tar, for me, is an incredibly pretentious film and a pretentious performance. I think Todd Field has just let Cate Blanchett roam free and not stopped her at all, because she has gone, in quotation marks here, so far into character that she's become a caricature of the role. I think it's a problematic film anyway by turning this one female figure at the head of a male-dominated industry and turning her literally insane. But I just think it's an overly expressive performance, and I was disappointed the BAFTAs didn't try harder with where their award went. It feels to me like she knows she's trying to be a troubled mind, and in doing so is being far overly moved by every action that she takes. She is too immersed in her art. She is the standard piss take of what too immersed in your art looks like, and for me, it shouldn't win. But I think it will. I would be so much happier with Michelle Yeoh winning, because she had so much different acting to do within Everything Everywhere. She had so many circumstances and took us through them all wonderfully and made sure we had a lot of fun while we were doing it. I do love her performance. I think it's a key part of the film. She works the screen wonderfully. She works every scenario perfectly. It's fantastic. The Bourgeois, however, goes to someone not even nominated, and I cannot believe they are not nominated. This is why the Oscars have got it so wrong. The Bourgeois goes to Viola Davis in The Woman King. When Andrea Riseborough was nominated, I was incredibly confused. I thought Viola Davis would be an absolute shoo-in for this award, and then she isn't even on the shortlist. The Woman King is probably a 4-star film on the whole, but I'm very comfortable in saying that a whole star's worth of that is down to Viola Davis, possibly more. You know, she is the life of the film. She is all of it. She's a tour de force of power and pride and calculated authority, along with being unapologetically cerebral and high status and physically imposing without going miles overboard like Cate Blanchett. I really hope there isn't a sinister reason as to why she isn't in the nominee list, because it just baffles me. She is utterly extraordinary, and I think definitely in terms of defining a film, she does the best job out of anyone. If I had to pick out of the Oscar nominees, I would go for Ana de Armas. I think what she did in Blonde was what Blonde wanted her to do perfectly, and she didn't just fall into, let's do an impression of Marilyn Monroe. There's a reference 3 people will get, but it's really a complicated role, I think, and I think she navigates it really professionally and really cleverly in the way that she performs it. There's a sort of subtle smugness, but not any kind of huge ego going on with her performance, and I think she strikes a balance perfectly. But she doesn't quite have the gravitas of Viola Davis, so really the Oscars have already got it wrong. Special mention also for the Bourgeois for Emma Thompson in Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, or Leo Grande, I can never remember. She does a marvellous job at telling a really bold story, and her chemistry with Daryl McCormack is fantastic, and that should absolutely be recognised, because that is a role which is designed for an older actress, and she still makes it feel as youthful and as vibrant as ever, and I think she displays the theme of that film perfectly within her performance. So special mention for Emma Thompson. The Bourgeois goes to Viola Davis, and the Oscars are going to get it wrong and go for Cate Blanchett. In before they don't, and I look like a massive idiot. Let's move on to the next leading acting award. It's Best Lead Actor, and the nominations for the Oscars are Austin Butler in Elvis, Colin Farrell in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser in The Whale, Paul Mescal in Aftersun, and Bill Nighy in Living. Side note, Bill Nighy nomination, yes, finally, this man is fantastic. Anyway, easily, and I mean easily, this is the hardest decision of the whole Oscars in terms of prediction, because there are 5 fantastic nominations without exception. They are all genuinely outstanding, and I only really have 2 omissions, but I understand the list has to be shortened. Felix Camera in All Quiet on the Western Front, and Alexander Skarsgård for The Northman. I didn't really love The Northman. Some of it was excellent though, and it all looked wonderful, but without a doubt, Alexander Skarsgård makes that film as striking as it wants to be, as he is intimidating and imposing, and he is the lifeblood of that film, which needs to be in the realm that it is set, and I was slightly surprised he wasn't here, because I thought he was such an imposing and demanding presence. It was fantastic. Felix Camera is wonderful in All Quiet, and the film centres around him, and he is the emotional heartbeat of it. He's a great presence, delivers an excellently emotional performance, and delivers the emotive hits the film needs at the right times with the right amount of emphasis. But the problem I have, and the reason I know they wouldn't have put him on the list, is because if Andrew Garfield didn't win for Hacksaw Ridge, then Camera was never going to win this. It kind of proves to you that this isn't the role that's going to win you the Oscar. As for who will win, I don't know if the Oscars will go for Brendan Fraser. In fact, I don't know anything at all, and you can put that on a fucking t-shirt if you like. Maybe it will be Brendan Fraser. It could well be. He seems to be the front runner, but it might also be Austin Butler. I suspect it will be one of those two. I can narrow it down to those two and maybe put Brendan Fraser ahead for who they will pick. If any of the other three win, I'd be very surprised, but not mad, because I love all the performances. So that's what I'm saying. I'm sitting on the fence slightly and saying it'll probably be Brendan Fraser. If not him, then it definitely will be Austin Butler. And if it's none of them, then I don't know what I'm talking about. As far as the BSWHAs go, I think after a lot of consideration, if I'm honest, Austin Butler should win. I think he's given the best performance of the year in a quite bloody extraordinary turn as the King, in a rather bloody brilliant film. I love Colin Farrell. I think he's absolutely wonderful in Banshees, and I'm really tempted to give all the available acting wins to Banshees, but I have to be honest, I was blown away by Austin Butler, so he wins. I forgot I was watching him. It felt like I was watching Elvis. It felt like a documentary, and it was Baz Luhrmann to the point where it felt like the right choice. It felt perfect to me. It was a 5-star film without a shadow of a doubt, and the central performance is the thing, and he is wonderful in it, and so I think he should win. I will give a special mention for Daniel Kaluuya, Robert Pattinson, or Arbats, and also Michael Ward in Empire of Light, because he was delightful and had great chemistry with Olivia Colman, and I think they came together to make a really sort of special film. Now we move to the second last category we're going to talk about here. It's Best Director. So the nominees for the Oscars are Martin McDonagh with The Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. Now, this list doesn't have Jordan Peele, it doesn't have Matt Reeves, and it doesn't have any women in it at all. Like Charlotte Wells, an independent film which gained incredible reception. Sarah Polley. Todd Field is a wrong inclusion. It's completely wrong. But it's the Oscars, so that just happens. They get everything wrong. Like, how did Jessica Chastain win Best Actress last year? How is that possible? Kristen Stewart was by far and away the best performance last year, and possibly the best performance of perhaps the last 5 years, I would say. How did Will Smith win? Andrew Garfield was clear as day the better performance last year. It's just wrong a lot of the time. Anyway, as far as this goes, you'd be surprised. I'm not going to give it to Martin McDonagh for the BSWHA. I predict that Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert will win at the Oscars. Although, part of me wonders if there will be a poetic element in giving it to Steven Spielberg, because The Fabelmans is his story, and it would feel like the right one for him to maybe win his last Oscar for. Who knows? I think it's those two that are up for contention. I'm not going to give it to Martin McDonagh, as I say, which might surprise you given how much I love Banshees. And the truth is I'm torn between Jordan Peele and Baz Luhrmann, because Baz Luhrmann made Elvis f***ing electric. It is like absolutely experiential at points, and I think he has been criminally overlooked because so much of that film, yes, is Austin Butler, but it's Austin Butler working within this world that has been crafted by Baz Luhrmann. As I said in a few podcasts ago, it's the most Baz Luhrmann film there could be. You know, it's the perfect subject for him. There's neon everywhere, there's lights, there's performances, there's screaming, there's electricity, there's all of it there. And it is the perfect conditions for a Baz Luhrmann film to shine in. And so the fact that he's not even nominated for Best Director is a mistake. As I say, I've not seen Triangle of Sadness, but I haven't seen too much raving about it, so directorially speaking, I mean. And so Ruben Östlund's inclusion feels odd to me. It feels rogue. It feels like they're filling a spot. But Charlotte Wells needs recognition. You know, Baz Luhrmann needs recognition. Jordan Peele needs recognition. It's just, it feels like a safe selection for me, and Todd Field and Ruben Östlund, I would argue, do not deserve to be there. So it's a shame, because the Oscars might like to pride themselves on the fact that they are becoming more diverse, and they're showing themselves to be more ethnically complex in all their nominations, and representing genders and race and all this kind of thing, but they've let themselves down again, because they could have done something different, and they mucked it up. So the BSWHA goes to Jordan Peele, just because of how thematically rich all of the shots are, and just how clever it really is. As I say, Charlotte Wells deserves a mention, because and it's an independent film, and it was recognised on the scale that it is. It shows the director really has to know what they're doing, and she clearly has full control over her story, and it's fantastic to watch. But Jordan Peele pips it for me, purely because of how much detail you can find in so many of the shots, and how so much of it tells you exactly what you need to know subtly. It doesn't throw it down your throat, it doesn't overload you, it takes you on the journey that it's meant to, and keeps reminding you what the themes of the piece are, and that to me is how to direct a film. So, I believe that the Oscars will give Best Director to Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, or Steven Spielberg, but the BSWHA goes to Jordan Peele. Now we're at the biggie. The Best Picture Award. The Oscar nominations are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. Now, in my head, the Oscars will be popular with lots of people for the choice that I think they're going to make. I think the 2023 Oscar winner for Best Picture will be Everything Everywhere All at Once. I personally didn't love it. I thought it was great, but it didn't hit me like some of the other films did, and I think I'm definitely in the minority there. I think there's so much right with the film, and I don't actually think there is much I can pick wrong with it. I think it's fantastic. It takes you on a journey that most films do not, and it does it successfully, and it's fantastic, and I love that it's getting so much praise. I love how international it is. It's brilliant. I just didn't love it myself personally, and that's just a preference thing. It reminded me slightly of Turn Left from Doctor Who on steroids. So I'd sort of seen the story before, and I do have a thing with Everything Everywhere, which is this. I think its acclaim would be so much smaller than it is if Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness wasn't as bad as it was, because people were crying out for a film that did this multiverse, several timeline thing right. And it did. It nailed it. And so obviously comparable to the big blockbuster, it was so much better, and people reverted to it, and people said, this is the standard, this is what we want. It was a movie for the masses done in a way that everybody could enjoy, and I love that from it. And that's why I think the Oscars will go for it, because actually it's a popular choice. And not only is it a popular choice, but it's not a safe choice either. It is rogue to give it to this kind of film. It's not your usual Best Picture winner, but I think they'll do it, and I think they'll be proud of doing it. And would I be annoyed? Not at all. Not at all. But for me, it isn't the Best Picture. The BAFTAs went safe for me when they picked All Quiet on the Western Front. That's the equivalent of them picking 1917 for me. Not to say it is a bad film, because it isn't. It's fantastic, undeniably, but it did feel like a safe choice. It might, conceivably, be The Fabelmans at the Oscars, but I think Everything Everywhere will win just because it is a more interesting and rogue choice. And I hope at some point along the way, be it I can't quite remember what it's nominated for, but something. I hope Top Gun Maverick picks something up, because it is utterly wonderful. You're never lost. It's emotionally rich. It's geographically fantastic. It looks exceptional, and it's fun as fuck. That's where the Oscars are going to go. But here I'm going to give you the top 5 BSWHA nominations. Basically, my favourite 5 films of last year. And I'm cheating. I'll explain. So, number 5 is The Batman. I thought it was a very Batman-y film. I think it did what a lot of superhero films are scared of. I think it was grungy. I think it was well shot. I think it was well written. I think it looked fantastic. I think it was performed very well with a great cast. I didn't feel like it was 3 hours long. When I thought about it more, I loved it more. It just felt like a great superhero film, and I think they're hard to come by nowadays. So at 5 is The Batman. At 4, Empire of Light. I had a wild day when I went to go see Empire of Light, but it hit me emotionally, and I was left teary-eyed and slightly upset at the course of the film, but there was so much in it that I just adored. Roger Deakins shooting it was great. Sam Mendes' direction was fantastic. I thought even though the second act was a little bit muddled, a little bit overcrowded, slightly out of place at times, I didn't care, because I was so won over by Olivia Colman and Michael Warden performances, and Tom Brooke, as I say, Colin Firth. So many great performances in there, and it just felt like a cosy, warm film about a cinema. And the Toby Jones stuff, people say was, too much. I disagree. Spot on. Number 3, I have a tie for 2 films, so I've technically got a top 6. Tied at number 3, because I think they both provide similar feelings to me. Top Gun Maverick and Elvis. Both of them are roller coaster rides, but both of them give me the ride that I was looking for. Both of them send me emotionally to the right places, visually to unbelievable places, and both of them are controlled in a really careful way, which means that everything that needs to stand out in it does, and I really appreciate that. People say Baz Luhrmann just goes wild, and he can, and he does in Elvis, but he also keeps it toned in and reined in and emotional when it needs to, and that's exactly the same with Top Gun Maverick, which is 100 times better than its original. So those two are tied at number 3. Yes, I've cheated. Number 2 is Nope. I've done a whole spiel on Nope before. I've said everything that needs to be said about it, and then some. Go and listen to the podcast on it. I think it was one good, one bad. It's incredible. I love it. But my number 1 film of 2022, and the winner of the Bajoria Should Have Won Award Best Feature, is, it's The Banshees of Inisherin. Not Morbius. Shock. It's a perfect film in my eyes. It's a perfect script. There's 4 utterly brilliant performances. There's a visual element to the film which places you spatially in the perfect place every single time. It's dark, it's humorous, it's sad, it's emotive, it's adorable. It's one of the most human films I've seen in a very long time, and I think it deserves to be the best feature. It won't win at the Oscars. If it does, I will be so happy to be proved wrong. But for me, that is the winning film. Now, we've got to the end. I know that was a lot, and I'm sorry for overloading you with information there, but if I'd gone slower, this would have been an hour instead of however long it's going to be when I finish editing. But we shall soon see if I am proven right or wrong. Knowing me, probably very, very wrong. Sometimes I'm quite good at predicting this stuff, other times totally rubbish. Please tell me, though, what you think. I want to know what your favourite films of the year were, and I want to know who you would like to win. So please do get in touch. You all know, various social media, catch me in person, whatever. I would love to have a discussion with you about who you want to win and who your favourite performances were, what your favourite films were. Tell me all about it. I'm always down for a conversation where I can sit and listen to people talking about their favourite films. I love listening to people talk about their favourite films because people get passionate and they get excited, and that's what I love to see in films. So thank you very much for listening. I'm going to try and get this out before the Oscars, so I may as well edit it right now. Do get in touch. Tell me any suggestions you want, you see on the podcast, anything like that. And thank you very much for downloading. Bye!